So today we have Dr. Brittany Rice joining us. Dr. Rice is an assistant professor of behavioral science in the University of Kentucky College of Medicine. She also wears some other hats here at UK, including as a senior key member of the Sure Resource Center team. We're excited to have her join us today and to present the session, I Feel Like I'm Faking It, You. So I'll welcome Dr. Rice to the meeting.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Brittany Rice, as you all know by now, and today I'm going to be delivering a talk about the imposter complex. Aside from serving as a regional coordinator at the UK Shore Resource Center, I'm also a newly appointed assistant professor in the Department of Behavioral Science here at UK, as well as I am a program co-director for 2 cancer education and research training programs within the Markey Cancer Center at UK. I didn't get to where I am today without a number of training experiences, which you can see here, and I didn't get here without many bouts with imposter fears, feelings, and behaviors. And it is my experience with these fears and their manifesting behaviors, as well as strategies to alleviate the effects of imposter behavior on success, that I want to share with you today. I'm going to begin by providing you all with background information on imposter fears, and then I will discuss different dimensions of imposter behaviors. During this discussion of the behaviors, you will be presented with several examples of imposter-like thoughts, feelings, and actions. Then I will review a case study. The contents covered during the case study will set the stage for my presentation of strategies to alleviate the effects of imposter behavior on academic and career success. And just before opening the floor for questions and answers, I'm going to provide you all with a summary of the takeaways from today's session. Now that you know what to expect, let us please get started. So, imposter syndrome is an uncomfortable feeling that you experience when you think that you are unqualified or incompetent. This term originated in the 70s, where Clance and Eames, who are individuals that are both psychotherapists and researchers, noticed that women academics, so people in college and people who are teaching college, did not feel worthy of their achievements. Over time, the phenomenon was studied in various populations. And we now know that individuals that are underrepresented and underserved also experience similar feelings. Specifically, underrepresented and underserved students have reported that they feel like their proof of success is dismissed as luck, timing, or as a result of deceiving others into thinking that they are more intelligent and competent than they believe themselves to be. They have experienced intense feelings that others have inflated perceptions of their abilities, and they often feel convinced that they are a fraud and that they do not deserve the success that they have achieved. In the slides displaying the session objectives and overview, I use the terms imposter fears and imposter behaviors in lieu of imposter syndrome. And this is because medically, a syndrome is defined as a group of symptoms or conditions that occur together and may indicate the presence of disease or an increased chance of developing one. Just because one experiences an uncomfortable feeling, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with them. It's just a result of their thoughts and the situations. And it's something that we're going to talk about how to get through. Now, these uncomfortable feelings or thoughts that manifest as imposter fears, they're quite common. A recent poll revealed that 70% of people have dealt with or currently experience feelings of inadequacy. 60% of the people believe that they are not competent enough for their position, and that men and women almost equally deal with these feelings. Clance and Eames' characterization of the imposter phenomenon includes three dimensions, which are inauthenticity, fear of failure, and fear of being exposed as a fraud. So, a person experiencing a high feeling of inauthenticity feels phoniness despite contrary evidence of competence. The, feel, the fear, of failure manifests when facing externally or internally imposed achievement related tasks. It is one that has the fear of being exposed as a fraud if they are convinced that everyone around them has overestimated their abilities. And this is despite verifiable and objective evidence of their own successfulness. Since Clance and Eames' research, other more recent psychometric investigations have been done on the imposter phenomenon. As a result of this work, 6 new dimensions have been added. So on this figure, the initial dimensions, which are to my left, they are shown in orange, and the new dimensions, which are to my right, are shown in blue. These new dimensions include competence doubt, working style, alienation, other self-divergence, frugality, and the need for sympathy. I'm going to go by each one of the new dimensions one by one. Competence doubt measures a person's competence-related self-doubt, especially before performing a task. It also measures fear of failure and maladaptive perfectionism. The cause of this self-concept is the external attribution style of positive work results. Besides the negative consequences for subjective well-being, such as anxiety and depression, a person that experiences competence doubt likely has a strong fear of failure despite their former success. Working style measures the extent to which a person is prone to procrastination. A high score in working style indicates procrastination tendencies, while a low score indicates precrastination tendencies. Both working styles are regarded as different compensation attempts concerning the fear of failure due to a performance task. In both cases, the positive work is attributed externally to the over early work start or the last possible excessive workload. A person with a high score in working style may say, I often postpone starting important tasks. Alienation describes the missing feeling of authenticity and the high expression of impression management. High expression in this factor is due to the feeling of not being sufficient. So tendencies of self-control also reach into one's private life. An individual who is alienating often holds back their real personality. Other self-divergence measures the extent to which the expectations of the environment are perceived as overstraining. The cause of this perceptual distortion is a large delta between low self-efficacy expectation and successful work perceived by others. The large difference between self and other image intensifies the pressure to adapt as well as the feeling of not being inadequate. A statement or a feeling from a person who is experiencing this specific characteristic is people overestimate me. Reality describes the person's tendency to low self expectations and their unwillingness to lead. The fear of responsibility and challenges results from the fear of being exposed as an imposter. This reluctance inhibits career advancement and personal development. A person experiencing high frugality may say, it is very important for me to create something significant, yet this person will not lead as a result of their reduced self-efficacy. Last but not least, the need for sympathy is a measure of one's need for popularity and goodwill on the part of others. High expression of this indicates that a person believes in being dependent on the goodwill of others. Too much tolerance, however, has professional disadvantages and also serves as an external object of success attribution. One with an increased need for sympathy may think it is important to appear sympathetic. Shown are all the characteristics of imposter fears and behaviors. I'm going to give you all a second to take all of the collective behaviors in. During the case study to be presented in the slides to come, we will discuss some of these characterizations in greater detail. Okay, so your second's up, and I want you to know that I'm going to use a set of pictures to help illustrate the case that I'm presenting. An individual worked in an institution for 6 years in varying capacities. Based off this person's effort, they were approached with an opportunity to volunteer and help develop as well as steer programming. Leaning on observations and experiences, because they had no formal training, this person was able to contribute to grantsmanship for the creation of the program, expand program impact by implementing best practices for inclusive and equitable education, as well as extend programming reach through the establishment of department, collegial, institutional, and community partnership. They seemed to like and respect the person, and within a few months, they hired the person. 2.5 years went by, and the person was still in the same role. Simultaneously, the program and the center leaders opened a new position for program support. The filling of this position allowed the individual to not only pursue, but also execute and complete additional endeavors to establish and maintain the program as a program of excellence. While the individual felt quite fulfilled in their role, they wanted to propose and explore other opportunities within the program and outside of the program to further their professional development and visibility. The person spoke with program leadership and mentors about their desires. A year went by. During this year, although done at a gradual pace, more discussions had taken place and additional opportunities arose. However, some of these opportunities were not in exact alignment with what the person envisioned. The opportunities involved appointment promotion, and the moment was now. The person finally had the opportunity to engage in opportunities that were going to stretch them and grow them. Specifically, these opportunities were going to do so for them personally and professionally, as well as increase their visibility. But the person wondered where they fit for the promotion. They didn't know how to prepare for the promotion, nor what the transition to the promotion should look like. Here are the expectations of the opportunity or the position that was offered to our case subject. Evaluative metrics to be assessed upon the appointment period of this position include publishing 2 or more manuscripts per year and submitting 1 or more abstracts for national meetings per year as well. The person also has to compete for extramural funding to support the continuation of the program and to submit an R25 or equivalent grant applications until funding is achieved. In the next series of slides, I'm going to give you all a snapshot of the person who is our case subject's curriculum vitae. The person being discussed has 15 years of research experience, dating all the way back to their undergraduate training. Regarding teaching activities, the person has served as a teaching assistant, an instructor, as well as a consultant, Additionally, this person has facilitated many experiential learning opportunities. During the stint of this person's career, they have trained, mentored, and coached 75 learners. These are the grants and the fellowships that this person has received. Here are the honors and the awards that this person has also received. This person has 53 research and professional presentations under their belt, which were given at either their own institution, other institutions, regional and national conferences, as well as overseas. This person has 17 published research and intellectual contributions. Of them, 7 are manuscripts. So now that you have a better understanding of our case subjects' experiences, their skills, and their abilities, I want you to keep them in mind with respect to the promotional opportunity that they were offered. Now, I'm going to dive deeper into the case. In doing so, I will identify and present the subject of the case study's problems, their characteristics that are identified, actions taken, and solutions. Just in case you forgot, shown are some of the expectations of the position that pose concern for our case subject. And these are the evaluative metrics to be assessed upon the appointment period of the position include publishing 2 or more manuscripts per year and submitting 1 or more abstracts for national meetings per year. The person must also compete for extramural funding to support the continuation of programming and submit grants until funding is achieved. Why was this person concerned about publishing 2 manuscripts per year when they already had published 7? Well, in the new role, the case subject would be a PI and would be responsible for generating, overseeing, and funding a research paradigm. They had never been a PI before, let alone balancing their role while serving in program leadership. They didn't even know how they were going to do it. And that's because they only had experiences being a research assistant, a postdoc, or a program leader, not all simultaneously. Why were they concerned about grantsmanship when they have more than 10 years of funding history where they have obtained grants and fellowships and other related awards? Well, a deeper investigation of this revealed again that the person had never been the PI of a grant, so they didn't even know how they were going to go about getting their own grant. This too was new and overwhelming. The subject wondered how they would generate, fund, and execute, as well as complete projects with their own research paradigm all by themselves. Despite the subject's success and consideration for the position being offered, they thought that everyone was just being nice. According to them, they hadn't published enough. They weren't an expert at grantsmanship, and they have been dreading the day that they will be found out for the fraud that they were. We can observe the other self-divergence, imposter fear, and behavior here as the subject felt as if the expectations of the environment surrounding the offered position was overstraining. They wondered how they would do it all. They just knew they would fail. And according to them, they hadn't even been successful. So we observe the fear of failure within the subject. And then lastly, we can observe the fear of fraud. And this is because the subject indicates that they feel stupid and as if they did not belong the predominance of their whole career. They were afraid of being unmasked. There are 3 bullet points of solutions to match the 3 bullet points of expectations causing concern. While these solutions seem like a given and are very practical, I like to discuss them for just a bit in tandem with the actions that were taken. The case subject has published a number of different research and intellectual contributions, and although they had never been a PI, they understand that through their past experiences, the importance of collaboration and allocating protected time for research and writing. As such, Bringing this information to their remembrance and mentally shifting their thoughts is necessary for the manifestation of productivity. This person whose new position is in a different field from their formal training felt uneasy about submitting one or more abstracts for national meetings. And this was because their new field, was new to them. They didn't know what conferences were even being had within the field, nor did they have a completed research project within their new research area. In this case, the person must remind themselves of the truth. Facts can sometimes be contrary to the truth. The truth in this case is that an abstract is not always the prose for a finished work. It is a summary where one is with their project, meaning that they're going to talk about what they're found and what they're doing, and where the project is going, meaning the future directions. With this, the subject is on the brink of overcoming their imposter fears because they can identify what is holding them back, that which is them being new to their field, and brainstorm how to overcome this challenge independently and in the counsel of others. We know that the case subject has never been a PI of a grant, but they do have experience competing for scholarships, fellowships, and travel awards. With this, they have an extent of writing experience and should beat the idea of failing when competing for extramural funding with a try. Nothing beats a failure but a try. They should ask those in their professional and institutional network for feedback on their drafts and revisit and revise these drafts as suggested. Everything is a learning experience or lesson, and some of the best lessons are learned through mistakes. Perfection is an idea, and it's not a thing. It can be said that one isn't trying if they don't make mistakes. The subject should make room for error, be compassionate with themselves as they learn and grow. And if they keep writing and keep writing and keep submitting, they are going to eventually be bound to successfully land a funding opportunity. If you all haven't figured it out by now, I am the case subject that I'm talking about. I had to remind myself while preparing and practicing for this talk that it is in fact my experience with my bouts of imposter fears, feelings, and behaviors that qualify me to actually speak on the imposter phenomenon, despite somehow me feeling like I shouldn't because I'm not an expert and I'm not a psychologist. In the subsequent slides, we are going to further discuss some tools that can be used to dismantle imposter behavior. Shown are 3 of the 4 tools that we're going to discuss. First thing first, when it comes to imposter fears and behaviors, you have to recognize how it shows up for you. Then you need to identify how the fear and the behavior is holding you back. Upon doing this, you need to take small steps to positively reframe your thinking, which, if done correctly, will beneficially shift your words and your actions. While and after reframing and shifting your thoughts, words, and actions, ask for feedback and revisit these same thoughts, words, and actions. In the next set of slides, I'm going to describe these 4 tools to dismantle imposter fears and behaviors in the stepwise manner shown. Now, on each of these slides in this series, you're going to see green text in the upper part of the slide. This is to help orient you just in case you get lost. So keep this in mind. If you're lost while I'm talking, look for the green text. So, the imposter complex has been categorized into 5 subtypes, which are the perfectionist, the superhero, the natural genius, the soloist, and the expert. I'm going to describe each of these subtypes and provide supporting details, but I want you to note that my description of each subtype is not an exhaustive list. The perfectionist typically has an unrealistic view of self. Folks exhibiting this subtype may feel like any mistake that they make is a failure, which can lead to negative self talk and feelings of inadequacy. They also may catastrophically think and have difficulty accepting praise, meaning their achievements are undeserved, and that they are likely to be exposed as a fraud. And they may feel uncomfortable or frazzled when given a compliment. The perfectionist is always striving for perfection, setting challenging goals, as well as feeling disappointed when they fall short. The superhero subtype is characterized by a tendency to work harder than others and believe that one must be the hardest worker to achieve the highest levels of success. Some symptoms of the subtype include experiencing difficulty, delegating tasks, or asking for help, feeling like one must do everything themselves, taking on too much, and risking burnout. One exhibiting the natural genius subtype believes that they should be able to excel at everything without effort and may experience unrealistic expectations of self, fear of failure, reluctance to try new things, self doubt, and sensitivity to setbacks. Specifically, sensitivity to setbacks results in a considerable loss of self confidence and adversely impacts their own critique of their perceived obstacles that impedes their success. If one is the soloist subtype, they believe that they must do everything on their own and that asking for help is a sign of weakness. Soloists tend to avoid collaboration or they feel inadequate when they have to rely on others. They struggle with delegation, they feel isolated and overwhelmed as well, and they often experience feelings of inadequacy and self doubt. Soloists also believe that the only credit they can take is when they complete a job alone. If you are one that constantly seeks out new training and certifications, feels like you don't deserve your success, you worry that others will discover that you are a fraud, you feel like you need to work harder than others to prove your worth, you may be a living example of the expert subtype. Experts typically won't apply for a job unless they meet every criterion on the job description. They also feel embarrassed when they don't know the answer to the question and they believe that they could have done better after a success. I want to encourage you all to think intrinsically and reflectively and identify which, if any, subtype or types resonate most with you. I have been the perfectionist, the superhero, the natural genius, the soloist, and the expert. In certain seasons of my training and my career, my identification with a specific subtype or subtypes have been more prominent than others. So, once you have recognized how the imposter complex shows up for you, which is one of these 5 subtypes that I just described, you have to identify how it might be holding you back. To do this, we've got to start with mindset. To identify your stance or your mindset, ask yourself questions. Are you feeling burned out? Are you afraid to take risks? Do you blame yourself? Do you talk yourself out of opportunities? Additional factors for consideration include constantly feeling anxious, having a hard time setting boundaries, and experiencing overall unhappiness and lack of self confidence. Note that the imposter complex can hold one back by undermining their confidence and make it difficult to step outside of their comfort zone. This prevents one from achieving their full potential. So if you do not identify and address your mindset, you won't even win the battle. meaning it's crucial to take steps and reframe and shift your thoughts, your speech, and your actions. Now, although on this slide I have a list, which you can't see everything, but this is a list on the small steps that you can take to reframe and shift. We have to first start with the analyst of our thinking. What labels do you impose upon yourself? What labels do you feel are imposed upon you? Are you living up to these labels? Are you working hard not to live up to them? Clear your mind of what it is or what you perceive is expected of you. Be who you are and do what you can. I promise you that you are enough. In the same vein, do not strive for perfectionism. Recall in the previous slides that I stated that perfection is an idea, not a thing. Aim for progress. Perfection is the enemy of progress. When you hear the word failure, what comes to mind? Do you run towards it or do you run away from it? If it's the former and not the latter, ask yourself why. Recall in the previous slides that I mentioned that failure or making mistakes provides opportunity for growth. It's from our mistakes that we learn. Lastly, in analyzing your thinking, focus on how you feel about support. Do you feel supported? Do you feel alone? I want you to note that you're never alone. We do not live in a vacuum or in our own world unless it's metaphorically speaking. Now, since you can't be alone, act like it. Learn from and grow with others that surround you. When you know where you are mentally starting from, you can begin to reframe your thinking. There is a concept developed by Carol Dweck called growth mindset. If you do not have it, I strongly encourage you to adopt it. Growth mindset is the belief that a person's abilities can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. Research shows that people with growth mindset are more likely to thrive in the face of difficulty and continue to improve. To cultivate a growth mindset, you must embrace challenges, understand that effort is a path to mastery, learn from feedback, and be inspired by the success of others. Also, while reframing your thoughts, consider the identification of your confident skills and use them. So when I say confident skills, I mean your strengths. What are your strengths? If you don't know them, consider what people say you're good at. Strengths have been shown to fuel our confidence. Everyone is good at something. Identify or find your thing and then be confident in it. Lastly, our thoughts affect our speech. What are you thinking? What are you saying? Do you think and say to yourself that you're not good enough? Do you think and say to yourself that you don't deserve things? Do you think and say to yourself that you will never be able to live up to everyone's expectations? If you do, I need you to silence that inner inaudible self critic and turn up your inner inaudible cheerleader. Be compassionate with yourself and speak positively. If you speak life, you will see life. And the opposite is true. If you speak death, things will die. So speak like life over yourself. Some reframing examples include turning I am not good enough into my success is not due to lack. Shifting I don't deserve things to I've worked hard to get where I am. Changing I will never be able to live up to everyone's expectations. And two, this place needs what I have to offer. Just speaking about speech, accomplishments don't really speak for themselves. Documentation gives them voices and serves as a great pick me up when you need a reminder. I want to encourage you all to track and record your wins. And when you are writing them, please use I statements. Remember, you contribute everything that you do. Even when you're collaborating, you have a role. So please use I statements. Be the superstar that you are and give yourself due credit. There are small wins and credit due daily. Another small step you can take to reframe your thinking and shift your words and your actions is to ask yourself questions and say yes, YES, to opportunity. You must be selective and wise in doing so, though. When opportunities present themselves, ask yourself the following: does X opportunity align with my goal? Will it move me forward? What would make me say no? Why? Keep in mind that not everything will come to you, so it is not wise to only passively wait for opportunities to present themselves to you. In some cases, you will need to actively pursue your goals and your desires by taking action and searching them out, rather than simply hoping they're going to pop up and appear on their own. Doing so may look like advocating for yourself and requesting inclusion and consideration for certain opportunities. And even though this talking point is about saying yes, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the importance to saying no as well. Set healthy boundaries for yourself and then guard them. I won't tell you what your boundaries should look like, but I can tell you that boundaries are beneficial. Setting boundaries help you set realistic expectations for yourself. It also helps you focus on the things that align with your priorities and your capabilities, and it helps you to avoid burnout and overwhelm. Additionally, and what I like to think is most importantly, is that boundaries help with building confidence and overcoming imposter feelings. And remember, boundaries only work if you communicate and enforce them. Last, but certainly not least, when speaking on the topic of reframing, and shifting, is support. We don't live by ourselves and we don't live separately within a vacuum. We are created in community for community. So please seek support. Don't go things alone. If you are struggling with feelings or tasks, seek out your mentors and or your peers for conversation. Share with them what's going on. It's okay to be vulnerable. Vulnerability creates space for opportunity. And we tend to be more gentle with others than we do ourselves. So it's feasible for you to expect those in your community to compassionately speak to you. If you have a question about who can speak compassionately to you during your challenging times, think about who sees you. Do they see you as you see you? Can they advocate for you? After this talk, we all are saying capital no to alienation and capital no to being a soloist. So here you have it. These are the 5 ways that you can take small steps to reframing your thinking and shifting your speech and actions. You can do these in any order because it's a bulleted list, not a numbered list, but you have to start with analyzing your thinking. All right. During the presentation of the last couple of slides, I discussed vulnerability as well as knowing and connecting to your people or community. Know who to reserve your vulnerability for. Again, vulnerability creates space for honesty, and honesty is conducive to success. Once you have carved out time to honestly identify your strength and your limitations, tap into your network or your circle of support for additional feedback. Go over your list of strengths and limitations with them. They may be able to spot and point out strengths and limitations that you haven't even considered. Generate plans to enhance your strengths and to bridge your gaps, and have conversation about these plans with your people. Then begin to execute them individually and collectively if called for. Communicate your wins and your pitfalls, and brainstorm alternative and ways to overcome roadblocks. I have shared 4 steps that you can take to dismantle imposter fears, feelings, and behaviors. They're all shown here. Please take a moment to think which of these steps you can practice today. In summary, feeling like an imposter is not atypical. It is okay to have imposter feelings and feelings. They are just fears and feelings, not truth. There are 9 characterizations for the imposter phenomenon, and they include in, inauthenticity, fear of failure, fear of being exposed as a fraud, competence doubt, working style, alienation, other self-divergence, frugality, and need for sympathy. The phenomenon is complex and consists of symptoms which have been categorized into subtypes. There are commonalities and shared symptoms amongst the subtypes. The phenomenon is still being studied and worked through, and I'm one of the people that is still working through it. I really don't think you all will believe the amount of imposter fears and feelings I experienced, and even the behaviors that I demonstrated while preparing for and practicing this talk. But I am able to deliver this talk because I ditched perfectionism and the pressure to be an expert, which is another way of saying that I recognize that I am a work in progress. We all are works in progress, and perfection is the enemy of progress. The 4 tools to help one progress in their quest to dismantle imposter fears and behaviors include recognizing how it shows up for them, identifying how it might be holding them back, taking small steps to reframe thoughts and shift words and actions, as well as asking for feedback and revisiting one's plan for success. Before I close, I want to leave you with this quote by Daniel Waitley for consideration, and it reads, "It is not what you think you are that holds you back, it's what you think you aren't." And with that, I would really like to thank you all for your time and your attention. I feel super blessed to have this opportunity to just be with you all. And I also want to point out that I'm always willing to prepare and present trainee-based personal and professional development talks. If you are interested in having me speak with your research group or members of your department, college, and institution, please notify the Resource Center at the email address shown in green on the screen. Okay, now I'm going to open up the floor for questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Brittany. I'll invite anybody with us to drop questions in the Q&A box or the chat as well. And happy to take those anytime.
I'll echo the chat. So that was a terrific presentation, Brittany.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have one question in the chat now. It asks, how do you start when you fit into every category?
Oh my goodness. That's a good question because I stated that I was all 5 subtypes. So first, thank you for the question. That's a really good question. And I've been the perfectionist, I've been the natural genius, I've been the soloist, I've been the superhero, and I've even been the expert. But what I can say is throughout certain seasons, there will be one that I just resonate with more. So I would say figure out which one you resonate with more and then address that one. If it's, well, the one for me right now is the expert. So while I was preparing this talk, I was just like, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychometricist. And I read 2 papers about the imposter phenomenon or complex, which I had referenced in the sources for the slides. But I was just like, I don't know everything. So to combat that, I looked at my current experiences. I looked at what I'm doing to prepare. And then I had to recognize like, it's okay. You don't have to know everything. So I started to speak positively to myself. I had to turn down the inner critic because I was like, somebody's going to ask me something that I don't know the exact answer to, kind of like now, where I'm just like, this is what I think. So yeah, I would just say whichever subtype is ringing the loudest bell to you, start with that one. You don't have to tackle everything at once. It's a stepwise process. And I've experienced imposter fears, feelings, and behavior all throughout my academic training. And even now, as I'm into my career, um, I'm just learning different ways to, I guess, deal with it and mitigate it.
Okay,
I
great.
don't know, Dr. Murphy, Dr. Spear, even you yourself, Melissa, do you have a response with what do you tackle and how do you tackle them all?
That's tough. I mean, is I don't know, is it if it's a question of just how you which category is a better fit for you, I don't think that matters so much as how you would address what you think the problem is. That
Hmm.
makes sense. I mean, it's sometimes it's just hard to know where to start. And you think, well, it could be any one of these things. And um, when you have a big issue that you're trying to address, I mean, it's like that old adage or whatever. It's like, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one
Mhm.
bite at a time.
Mhm.
So, I mean, start small and deal with the things that you think are the low hanging fruit, and then gradually work your way up. Melissa?
Um, yeah, I'm definitely not an expert in this area, but the next question in the chat is definitely one I identify with, so I'm going to toss it out. It's asking if you have any advice on getting any less uncomfortable with receiving praise from your superiors.
These are such good questions. Okay, any advice? Less
Hmm.
uncomfortable.
Lots
You
of people
know,
are
oh,
uncomfortable with praise.
mhm.
Um, I don't
Just
know. I mean, I'm still uncomfortable with praise when someone tells me that I'm amazing for whatever reason. They feel all weird about it, and I'm not quite sure what to do.
I think you say, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I mean, you just don't want to dwell on it. You don't want to, blow it off. You don't, I think you just, in a semi-confident, not arrogant, but in a semi-confident manner, you just say, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Um,
Yeah.
that's how I would look at it.
I'd like to say something and it's a bit different. And this just shows you all of our divergent perspectives based upon our different experiences and preferences. But I would encourage you to take those praises and receive them. But also, I don't even know who sent the message because I can't see the chat. But continually celebrate or praise yourself. Tell yourself daily the things that you're doing well. I know for me, when I first started receiving praise, I was just like, people want me to feel good because they aren't being truthful. Um, but then I just start celebrating my own success, telling myself that I was doing as well, that my best looked different from day to day, and that was helpful. So I think what everybody said, if you could just put it in a blender and mix it all together, do that.
Okay. The next question is there any research that identifies any particular profession or professions that experience more imposter fears than others?
Oh, that's a great question. So I spanned the literature trying to be the expert that I'm really not. And I saw that it pops up in just about every field or profession that you can think of. And I didn't come across any data that said it was more like pronounced in one field than the other.
Okay. Next question says, is imposter syndrome related to mental health or behavior disorders, or is it maybe used as a marker for those?
That's a really good question. Thank you for that question. I have to be honest and say that I'm unsure. I didn't really tap into the literature that would associate it or dissociate it from uh, mental health and or illness.
Although if I could just add one thing, I know that a lot of institutions, particularly University of Kentucky, and I'm sure others, really have expanded resources, counselors, therapists that are available for not only students, but for faculty, for staff. And, I think those are valuable resources that, I think talking to a professional is really valuable. And I hope people will consider doing that if they feel the need.
Okay. The next question would like to know what advice you have for those who are uncomfortable with receiving criticism.
Ooh, this person is my twin. So, and I was just like, throughout my training, they just keep telling me what I'm doing wrong. They just keep telling me what I'm doing wrong. What am I doing right? But I had a fixed mindset. Once I started to transition to having a growth mindset, I had to learn that I needed to learn from feedback. And the individuals that were criticizing me were doing so in a manner to which I could continue to grow. So, what I would say is try not to take it personal, but do understand that they're just giving you the feedback because they want your work to be better. It's hard to separate yourself from your work, and I'm trying to work on that myself. But critiques are meant to make you better. Um, so I guess that's all I could say is just try not to take it too personal and just going with the mindset that it's to make me better and always think the best of people. Even with the students that I work with now, I'm like, okay, how am I going to tell them this? Okay. But then I'm just like, hey, I want you to know I want you to be your best, X, Y, and Z. I also don't feel like you're a lackluster person. So think about this, this, and this.
I will add that if not all criticism is created equal, obviously.
Mm.
And if you don't understand what someone is getting at or it's unclear, you should ask for them to clarify.
That's good.
Okay. Next question is, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, the other thing is that some people are much better than others at giving criticism. I've had people give me criticism in a very uplifting way, and I've had people give me criticism in a more negative way. But even in the negative way, they're telling me things that I probably have to hear. So try to separate what you're hearing from, how you're hearing it. I think that can be important.
Okay, the next question is asking, how can educators be most effective for students who may struggle with imposter syndrome?
Oh, thank you for that question. I lead with transparency. I've told you all that I'm still experienced, and I have experienced imposter fears, feelings, and behavior. And not only do you all know, but the whole world will know once this is on YouTube. So I think leading with transparency and then providing some type of supplemental activities or instructions to kind of help them target what they're facing. Um, I know that that's somewhat hard because one student is not like the other student. So maybe you just take a quick climate check or a pulse to kind of see what behaviors or you observe that they're exhibiting. And then you just provide feedback or these instructions to kind of help them. So I know for me, a lot of the times when I work with students, and I work with students that predominantly that are from underrepresented and underserved backgrounds, and they typically not all, majority of them typically seem to underestimate their abilities. And they tend to think that I'm telling them good things just to tell them to make them feel good. I struggle with that too. And so I try to assign tasks, which sometimes they're formal, sometimes they're informal, just to build their confidence. And then I ask them, okay, well, what have you done? Oh, could you do this then? What are you doing now? And I kind of give them activities to help them realize in real time their own strengths or their own growth. And it seems to be effective. But I said all of that to say it might be a challenge as an educator, But I think leading with transparency always helps with anything. And just considering who you're working with and being 100% mindful that you're not a psychologist, you're not a psychotherapist, you're not a psychometricist. So you just try to learn as you can and do the best that you can.
I have one thing. That was
Yeah.
a great explanation. I also say that when students ask me about issues like that, I say make sure that in addition to it being very common, then that you're not alone, which is what you were saying, Brittany. I'd also say that you make sure that when you're comparing yourself to others, you're not making unrealistic comparisons. So, don't, undergraduate students shouldn't be comparing themselves to, say, a postdoc who's had more experience. Obviously, undergraduates shouldn't be comparing themselves to, a professor, but just make sure that you're comparing to someone who is similar to your current status, your current level. So, I think that's one of the things that leads to this sort of thing. You look at someone who's very accomplished and you say, I could never do that. And you're looking at someone who might have had decades of experience, for example, or a lot more than you. And it's just an unfair comparison. So make sure you're not being unfair to yourself.
Piggyback off of that and kind of extend it. So even if somebody's on your same level or they're your colleague, I would even advise against comparing yourself to them. I say compare yourself to yourself. So I have so many ways, but sometimes if I were to look at a colleague who I didn't start the same playing field with them, I didn't have the same experiences, I might think like, oh, but if I look at who I am today and I look at myself even a day ago, because last night I was panicking about this presentation, and I look at myself a year ago, years ago, I will see my own growth. So I think if you have to compare, just compare with yourself to where you were, where you are. Yeah.
All right, well, we do want to, excuse me, be respectful of everyone's time, so we'll conclude our Q&A here. But if you have additional questions for Dr. Rice, you're certainly welcome to reach out to her or the shared inbox, and we can get you to her. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. And again, we will make sure the recording is posted on our YouTube channel early next week. Thanks all.